Voting is a civic duty. Let's register on the electoral list. This is a message from Equinoxe Television.
Hi there to all of you viewers of Equinoxe Television, 6 p.m. in Douala. And it's time for the news. We thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our major stories this evening. As the 2025 presidential election draws near in Cameroon, some elites from the South region are stepping up the anti-Biya regime campaign. 8 of them have issued a release calling on Cameroonians from the president's region of origin to vote wisely by choosing a leader who will take them out of their precarious living conditions. We will be telling you more in this news edition. And in-house today has been observed as the Sickle Cell Day. We will be talking with a sickle cell warrior on her journey through the sickle cell disease. Medics always warn or advise on knowing your status before thinking of having a baby. Viewers, those are our lead stories. Details and more when we come back. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for the confidence. In-house tonight, June 19, which is today, is observed as a World Sickle Cell Day, a day to educate the public on the condition which affects the red blood cells and the challenges of those living with that pathology. On the occasion of the World Sickle Cell Day, our newsroom, our reporter Lucy Liengu is here to interest in 34-year-old Basilia Sofian Jemi, a sickle cell warrior who has braved the odds.
Basilia Sofian Jemi is one of the many Cameroonians battling with sickle cell anemia.
On a su que j'étais dépendante parce que j'ai commencé à faire trop de crises, trop d'anémie, j'étais constamment hospitalisée.
The 34-year-old who lives with her husband in Bonantone, Douala 1, has been suffering with the disease since the age of 4.
Et je remercie mes parents parce qu'ils m'ont donné beaucoup de courage à cette période très difficile.
From a family of 3, Basilia is the only child diagnosed as a sickler and has been fighting the disease for 31 years.
J'avais constamment mal, il fallait que je sois constamment couchée, mais j'avais la volonté d'aller à l'école.
As sicklers experience intense pain in their bones, chest and abdomen, Basilia ensures she takes her medications daily to avoid crises.
En saison de pluie, je dois toujours être couverte parce que
in addition to the usual sickle cell pain, she also struggles with the cold weather, especially during the rainy season.
Le regard de la société était négatif quand j'étais au lycée, à l'université.
Regarding her educational background, the reactions of friends and peers in school were often negative. This stigma motivated her to create her own association to combat discrimination faced by those who are SS carriers.
On m'avait déjà collé la fiche de celle qui va mourir avant la fin de l'année, donc c'était pas facile.
Despite the hurdles, including classmates who told her that sickle cell patients die at a certain age, Basilia persevered. Today, she holds a master's degree in public health.
Et j'encourage d'autres drépanocytaires qui sont émancipés, qui sont accomplis de s'identifier en tant que drépanocytaire leader.
As the president of Assistant Drepanos, Basilia has learned to accept her condition while encouraging other sickle cell patients to be confident, face the disease head-on and disregard societal negativity.
La prise en charge hospitalière de la personne drépanocytaire est tellement coûteuse.
Also, as an advocate, a warrior, she is concerned about the high cost of the sickle cell disease treatment and believes the government should extend a helping hand.
Et si j'ai cet âge ici et je suis épanouie, joyeuse comme vous me voyez là.
Despite having been able to manage the sickle cell disease for the past years, she hopes to become a mother someday.
We will be talking more on that with another warriors as will be in the second part of the news. And now let's take you to the southwest region. The mile 17 Muya stretch of roads in the headquarters of the southwest region has become very deplorable for some time now, plagued with deep potholes. For years now, residents have had to be struggling with the consequences of poor road infrastructure, which has also led to several road accidents and economic hardship. Immaculate Fogwina presents to us the stretch of the roads between Mile 17 and Muya in Buea.
Buea, chief town of the southwest region. We are currently on the Mile 17 Muya stretch of road, which is in an advanced state of deterioration. The entire stretch, marred by potholes, has for years affected circulation and is also the main cause of repeated accidents and breakdowns.
From Mile 16 to
we often spend close to 2 hours plying the Mile 16 Muya stretch of road. Even Mile 17 and Mile 18 is not spared. During the rainy season, it becomes even worse because the road is very slippery. Now we visit the mechanic workshop more often. A lot of trucks ply on this stretch. This has contributed to the very bad state.
Road users add that the poor state of the road is not only affecting daily life but also hindering the advancement of economic activities, given the inability of taxis and other vehicles to access certain areas.
We are often stuck in traffic on this stretch. A lot of us drivers don't like going to Muya because we don't want to destroy our vehicles. This is affecting the population of Muya. Transportation fare from Mile 17 to Muya now costs 300 to 500 francs, whereas it used to cost 100.
The people of Buea are crying out for help. They are pleading on the powers that be to construct their roads so as to ensure their safety, stimulate economic growth, and improve their daily lives.
In other news, the Bishop of the Bafoussam Diocese, His Lordship Paul Lonsi Kenu, has called on Catholic faithful and persons of goodwill to pray and also assist in the realization of the new Bafoussam Cathedral, which is under construction. He was speaking after a meeting with construction engineers who completed the first phase and advised immediate commencement of the second phase of the work. The new cathedral, according to the Diocese of Bafoussam, once completed, can host about 6,000 faithful. Details with Innocent Aze.
Smile is surfacing on the faces of Catholic Christians in Huka, a locality in Bafoussam 1 municipality, as construction of the new Bafoussam Cathedral is advancing satisfactorily. Meeting with the bishop and other religious authorities at the end of the first phase of the project, the construction engineers brought to the attention of the religious authorities the urgency to immediately engage phase 2 that constitutes roofing, plumbing and other finishing touches.
Il est important pour l'église et pour
It is important for the structure to be preserved by the Christian family in the Bafoussam diocese. Once in full use, stagnant water around can cause damage to the building.
C'est important, ça veut dire que ça peut prendre la corrosion. L'eau qui stagne là peut s'infiltrer et créer des dégâts dans le béton.
To the bishop of the Bafoussam diocese, there is no issue about preservation of the structure, but the main obstacle is money. He thinks that mobilization of Christians and persons of goodwill will surmount this barrier.
Mais comme j'ai l'habitude de dire,
like I used to say, my money is in the pockets of Christians and goodwill people. I wish that God touches their hearts so that this cathedral project is realized the soonest for us to start making use of it.
achevé pour que nous puissions nous y retrouver.
The cathedral under construction will replace the one currently in use but already obsolete, according to the Bishop of Bafoussam Diocese.
Il n'est pas possible.
It is not possible to mobilize people for ordination and blessing masses there, but the new one will be able to contain a large population. I pray everyone contributes to make this project befitting, for it will also be opened to host people from all parts of Cameroon and the world.
C'est une maison pour les fils et les filles de ce monde dans lequel le Seigneur nous a envoyés.
Once executed, the cathedral will have the form of a tortoise, symbol of African wisdom. It will have the capacity to host 6,000 Catholic faithful, thus making it one of the largest cathedrals in the Central African sub-region.
And now in politics, we told you in the headlines that as the 2025 presidential election draws nearer in Cameroon, some elites from the South region are stepping up the anti-BR regime campaign. 8 of them have issued a release calling on Cameroonians from the president's region of origin to vote wisely by choosing a leader who will take them out of their precarious living conditions. Babila Jonathan with details.
University Don, Professor Jean-Calvin AYUK and 7 other intellectuals and leaders from the South region of Cameroon have urged other Cameroonians from the same region to consider their problems in order to make an informed choice in the forthcoming presidential election. The declaration by the 8 signatories calls on the people of the South region to take up their individual and collective responsibility ahead of the presidential election, which they believe will result in a regime change. They have told Cameroonians of voting age in the South region and other parts of the nation to choose either silence, inaction, fear and collusion with the outgoing regime, or a responsible, useful and informed attitude. According to them, the first choice, silence, would lead them to suffering again and again after having suffered since 1982 when President Paul Biya came to power following the resignation of the country's first president, Amadou Ahidjo. The statement goes further to say such a choice will be irresponsible at a time when the current regime must be punished in the ballot box during the presidential election because it has failed in all sectors of national life. Professor AYUK and the others paint a gloomy picture of the South region, saying in 43 years, the outgoing regime has brought nothing beneficial to the people. They highlight the disastrous state of roads in the region, no supply of electric energy in some southern communities since the country's independence, endemic unemployment among young graduates, poor quality of life, and widespread poverty and despair. The second choice, therefore, which according to the 8 leaders is useful and responsible, is that of the engagement and participation of the population of the South in the political change that will take place this year. The signatories call on the people of the South to deny what they term certain lies, such as portraying Southness as attached to President Paul Biya simply because he is a native of the region, and projecting the South as the granite foundation of the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement. According to the declaration, these are political slogans of those qualified as regime praise singers who are accused of being experts in electoral fraud, agents of terror, influence peddling, and land grabbing.
Still in that line, Leon Taylor Onana continues his fight against what he calls the illegality within the CPDM. He is pressing for the holding of a congress of the party to elect a new flag bearer for the upcoming presidential election in Cameroon come October. Babila Jonathan once again.
A few months to the presidential election in Cameroon, Leon Taylor Onana, a local elected official, is positioning himself more as a central political player within the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement CPDM political party in an effort to stop what he calls illegality in the party. The CPDM elected official informed the elections management body, Elections Cameroon, of his continued efforts to secure the holding of a congress of the ruling party before the October election. A legal battle akin to opposition to Paul Biya's natural candidacy. This is a new blow facing the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement with the notification to the President of the Electoral Council of Elections Cameroon by Leon Taylor Onana of the petition for summary proceedings seeking the appointment of an ad hoc representative within the party with a view to convening the party's ordinary congress. This, according to Leon Taylor Onana, implies the ineligibility of any CPDM militant in the presidential election, including Paul Biya. A press release signed by Leon Taylor Onana calls national and international opinion to witness, formally warning the electoral body not to consider any candidacy from the CPDM without the holding of the said Congress. The CPDM militant emphasizes that any deviation by Elections Cameroon from this procedure will de facto authorize the CPDM to present multiple candidates in the presidential election. The Municipal Councillor calls on Elections Cameroon to assert its neutrality with respect to the administration and political authority.
And now, in news out of our national frontiers, at least 19 people have died in Madagascar largely from food poisoning, and according to government officials, a toxic substance was found in the food which the victims consumed. And over to Senegal, Macky Sall's former chief of staff, Moustapha Diakhaté, is accused of criticizing the presidential protocol during an interview on a local TV channel. Our foreign page roundup with Cedric Chakutu.
In Madagascar, at least 19 people died and about 20 others remain in a critical state after they had consumed food during a party. According to the government, a toxic substance was introduced into donuts eaten by the victims on the evening of the incident. Analysis of the suspect food are still underway. However, without waiting for official results, which are intended to identify the type of poison, the Minister of Health confirmed the toxicity of the samples during a press briefing. Elsewhere, in Senegal, the former chief of staff of President Macky Sall, Moustapha Diakhaté, is being prosecuted after criticizing the presidential protocol during an interview. It was the use of the word kunyafe that sparked tension. The Attorney General reiterated on Wednesday, June 18, 2025, among other things, and this, according to him, justifies Moustapha Diakhaté being prosecuted for insulting the head of state. Macky Sall's former chief of staff, for his part, confirmed that he made these remarks during a television program, but to describe the ignorance he claimed of the protocol of the republic by the current head of state, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, nothing that justifies prosecutions according to him. This is also the opinion of his lawyer El Hadjouf, who says that his client is accused of having castigated, denounced and criticized the violation of the protocol of the republic. According to the lawyer, this term has many meanings but can also mean ignorant, and for that he was prosecuted and sent to prison. He believes that the court has other things to do than judge people based on words that have multiple meanings. And in Guinea-Bissau, 4 months away from the presidential and legislative elections scheduled for November 23, 2025, officers in charge of reviewing electoral lists refused to pass on the necessary data for the National Electoral Commission to organize the vote. They claim unpaid wages. Just like last week, public officials had blocked hospitals and schools for a week. A new blockage that causes doubts about keeping the presidential and legislative elections scheduled for November 23, 2025. The electoral files should have already been ready, but the agents responsible for the electoral review refused to hand over the collected data. One of them, Helmeg Krade, denied any attempt to confuse the calendar, but insisted that the files will remain incomplete until their 45 days of work are regularized.
And now we talk sports. Viewers, A Legal Mind has described the suspension of Jeremy Gitap as illegal. To barrister Francois Mbala Mekongo, the Ethics Committee has no power to pass judgment over an incident which occurred in Côte d'Ivoire in a tournament which was not organized by Fecafoot. Details with Sumandika Gabriel.
One of Cameroon's football icon, Jeremy Soren Gitap, who doubles as the president of the Cameroon Footballers Trade Union, known in its French acronym as SINAFOC, has been suspended from all football activities for a period of 5 years with a fine of 10 million francs CFA. Jeremy Soren Gitap was sanctioned alongside his Secretary General, Barrister Daniel Blaise Ngos, who was suspended for 2 years with a fine of 5 million francs CFA. The decision taken by the Ethics Committee of Fecafoot has not yet reached the persons concerned. This was made known during the SINAFOC announcement of the situation of players in the League 1, 2 and Women First Divisions Championship. We have not yet been notified. We are still waiting for an official notification. It's through you journalists that we got the information, but some sent messages to our inbox. So we are waiting for an official notification. You should be calm, because judges of Sinafok will react when we get informed. The sanctions from Fecafoot to Jeremy Soren Jitap and Barrister Daniel Blessingos have been criticized by a legal mind. The decision is not bounding and naturally has several irregularities. In terms of its norms, one should be able to know who in the name of Fecafoot dropped a complaint. The Ethics Committee say Jeremy Soren Jitap violated the Code of Ethics of Fecafoot, but the legal mind says the competence of Fecafoot lies within Cameroon. The Code of Ethics, which is a jurisdiction, has a national bounding and can be used out of its boundaries because the AFCON is a competition that is organized by CAF. Jeremy Soren Jitap is being sanctioned due to his exchange of words with Etienne Tamo, Chief Protocol Officer of Samuel Eto'o at the dressing room of the Indomitable Lions during the AFCON in Côte d'Ivoire after Cameroon's win over the Gambia. The decision taken by the Ethics Committee of Fecafoot comes at a time when CAF on May 6, 2024 requested Fecafoot to suspend all disciplinary sanctions and transfer to them necessary elements, since they are the only one who can render judgment because the tournament was organized by them.
Thanks, Matt. And sad reports brings us to the end of the first part of the news, yours. Let's now move on to Talking Point. Welcome back, viewers. Our guest tonight is Chantal. She is a sickle cell warrior and also a communication specialist. Thank you so much, Chantal, for accepting to be our guest tonight on Talking Point. And today we are observing the Sickle Cell Day. You are a sickle cell warrior, like I just indicated, and you dedicate time, most of your time, to create awareness on this pathology or this disease. Tell us what motivated this, your initiative, and how do you go about the awareness campaign?
Hello, and thank you very much, Ms. Anambila of Equinoxe TV Cameroon, for your question. It is an honor to speak about sickle cell disease on this day, 19th of June, which is sickle cell disease, World Sickle Cell Disease Day. And as you can see, I'm all dressed in red. It's the color of sickle cell disease. And what motivated me to advocate and raise awareness on sickle cell disease is the fact that I am a person living with sickle cell disease. So I was born with the disease along with 3 other of my siblings. And 2 other of my siblings are carriers. So in a family of 6 children, there were 4 persons with the full-blown disease and 2 who carry the genes. That means if they too should marry people who carry the genes, they would transmit the full-blown disease to their children. So that is why I advocate for sickle cell disease, and I also advocate for sickle cell disease because of the lack of information and let me say cliches that have grown and filtered into sickle cell disease.
Madam Chantal, can you also tell us what some sickle cell warriors, what sometimes are you guys exposed to? What other diseases are you guys exposed to?
Sickle cell disease are exposed to stress or cold or too much heat, weather extremes, and different factors, malaria, or it may be something, there are lots of other things. They would go into what is called a crisis, and a crisis can be, it is extremely painful. It is when the C-shaped red blood cells are having problems passing through the very tiny blood vessels, and so they create a kind of a friction which is excruciatingly painful. And then the patient is said to have gone into crisis. And of course, like I said, for the cold, it varies from person to person. Some people would have different forms of crisis. Some would have even deformations because of the way the blood disorder manifests itself in them. And of course, for some other people, they don't only have sickle cell disease, they have other things other health conditions that are already there. They may be asthmatic, they may be diabetic, and all of that. So it adds to all of that.
Good, you're already speaking there on the different crises. We hear there are some warriors who have crises more than others. Tell us how the crisis usually manifests in most cases.
That's a very good question. Well, before we speak of warriors who have more crises than others, it's also good to know that though people living with sickle cell disease have the same red blood disorder, it shows itself or it manifests itself differently from person to person. Just like somebody who has a cold, you may catch a cold and you have a blocked nose and you're sneezing, and I have a cold and all I have is an itchy throat. So that's it. It manifests itself differently. But before we even talk about the levels of crisis, I think it's more important for us to understand. I'm no medical staff, but I'm going to try to summarize what is sickle cell disease. So, sickle cell disease is a red blood disorder which is inherited. You don't get it by touching me or any other person living with it. So, it means one parent is carrying a part of the gene and another parent is carrying another part of the gene, and the two of them have a child, and both parts of the gene meet and fuse in that child, and the child now gets the full disease.
Okay. Now, Aunt Chantal, being a sickle cell carrier or warrior seems to be very draining physically and financially for those who understand it. Can you let us know some of the socioeconomic challenges that warriors and also their families face?
I'm a journalist and a communication specialist. I'm also a mother and a wife and a writer. And when you live with sickle cell disease and over the years you see that the rhetoric around sickle cell disease, especially in Africa and in Cameroon included, it's not changing. Even though things are changing elsewhere in the world, you know that it is time to speak and to speak out and to keep on hammering until we see that change in rhetoric. It is totally unacceptable that in Cameroon in 2025, people still think sickle cell disease is a taboo. People still think sickle cell disease, or people living with sickle cell disease, are people who would die. Yes, of course, the disease has that huge risk. So there is always a death risk that is related to it. But if managed well, and if the person living with the disease is informed about their status early, then they know how they are accompanied and given the kind of support that they need, and they could live to full ripe old ages. I say it because I am 45 and I've been living with it for that long, and I still hope that I would go way, way, way for another 45 and beyond. So it's totally unacceptable that we still have this. And because of some of these misconceptions, and women with sickle cell disease can't have children. I am a mother. People with sickle cell disease can't have careers, can't work. I'm a specialist and a former UN staff. So you get all of these misconceptions, and the only way to change the mindset is through advocacy, through education, through communication. And that is why I took on myself to advocate for sickle cell disease, to communicate, to raise awareness. And my work is mostly on a two-phase. I raise awareness out of the limelight, working with families, using my own lived-in experiences to encourage parents that, you know, even if they have children with sickle cell disease, it's not a death sentence per se.
Thank you so much, and Chantal, and courage in your fight towards ensuring that people are aware on the sickle cell disease. And it is necessary, like we always say, medics advise to go for an electrophoresis test before you ever think of having a baby. Thank you again, and Chantal, you were talking to us from Paris, France. Just to let our viewers know that you're a communication specialist and also a sickle cell anemia expert, or let me say awareness specialist too. Thank you, and courage to you, and courage to all those warriors who are watching us out there. Viewers, thank you so much for being with us. That was what we put together for you this evening. On the news, our programs continue. Equinoxe comes up at 7 p.m., that is in about 30 minutes, and the news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. Stay with us on Equinoxe Television, and see you tomorrow again, same time. God willing. Bye-bye for now.